This is hashtag history. I don't know why
Yep.
I was going to say it like that, but it is hashtag
hmm
history, episode 143. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this week we are bringing you a topic that I stumbled upon while going down a rabbit hole. I go down so many rabbit holes on the daily that I actually do not recall exactly what I was actually researching when I
Yeah,
went
I was
down
gonna
this rabbit
ask.
hole. Yeah, how does one stumble down this one? All I know is that once I did go down this unexpected path, I immediately jotted down the topic to discuss in a future hashtag history episode. This week, we will be discussing the Newport Sex Scandal. This scandal was revealed when the United States Navy conducted an investigation in 1919 in which they were looking into the gross and deceptive tactics ordered upon a group of Navy personnel to impersonate gay men in order to
Okay.
catch gay men. Have you heard of
Okay.
this?
This sounds familiar. I didn't realize this is what it was called. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Perhaps maybe you have heard of it otherwise, but I also, when I was trying to figure out the rabbit hole, like when and why I had gone down this rabbit hole, I literally typed into my text messages the Newport sex scandal, and a text message that I sent to you back in April of 2024 just said, like, oh my God, we have to talk about the Newport sex scandal. You're like, yes, yes, yeah. Anyway, so this is where Navy personnel they impersonate gay men in order to catch gay men, something that it was illegal at this time in history to be gay, to engage in same-sex relations. 15 members of the Navy would end up being arrested in Newport, Rhode Island as a result of their, quote, scandalous conduct, unquote. Of particular importance is the fact that the Assistant Secretary of the Navy during this scandal, who would resign during the course of this investigation so that he could, well, I don't know, accept the nomination for Vice President of the United States, was none other than Franklin D. Roosevelt. In fact, Roosevelt's personal conduct in this matter was later said by the investigative committee to be deplorable, disgraceful, and reprehensible. This is definitely some little known history, but a very important piece of history to discuss. So let's dive into this drink so we can dive into this week's topic.
Okay.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And
This is Hashtag History, the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike.
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
We have to do our obligatory. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Samantha, for sponsoring every single cocktail for the entire season.
Yes, you're a great sister and a great listener.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then just another reminder, guys, I can't drink cocktails or most cocktails right now because I can't have citrus.
Yeah.
But we're gonna plow forward and Rachel's gonna take one
Do
for
this
the
by
team.
myself. Yeah, it's really hard for me.
I know.
I must say, this is very difficult, but I am willing to pick up the slack on this one
Okay. We appreciate you.
for my service, of course.
Yeah. So this week we're doing something that we have never done before. And I will say we definitely are going to do it again when I actually can drink.
Oh, for sure, we're doing this again.
Yeah. So we've never, 100 drinks into this over 100 drinks into this podcast, have never actually done like a shot as our cocktail or drink for an episode.
It's so crazy. I cannot
Yeah.
believe we've made it this far and have not done a shot for
Yeah.
the podcast, that is. On
I was
recorded
going to say,
shot.
many shots have been shared between Rachel and I back
But
in our
at least not recorded for the podcast.
Right. So this is the perfect opportunity to, just make a very simple singular shot because Grand Marnier, yes, you heard it, Grand Marnier is it has become the official liquor to shoot in Newport, Rhode Island. And it has apparently been for years, as
Yeah.
weird as it sounds. Rachel found out this is a thing.
It's a thing,
Yeah.
which I'm not complaining about. If I have to take a shot of something,
I
I
was
would
gonna
love
say-
for it to be citrusy.
Yeah, like not that I would like think to take a shot of Grand Marnier, but I ain't mad about it. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not mad at all.
No. So in a really good article by Vine Pair, they talk about how the idea of taking a shot of what they call, quote, grandma, unquote, is so, quote, weird and random, unquote. But not in Newport, where again, grandma pours started as a late night industry shot and have since become the official drink of the entire 25,000 person town.
I love it.
Yeah. Even those in Newport cannot quite pinpoint the history behind the liquor, but it's assumed that it became so popular among bartenders because the bottle is darker and therefore maybe their bosses never knew how much the bartenders were like skimming off the top. Like,
It's so good.
yeah. So a longtime Newport resident and bartender said, quote, people coming in from out of town, they'll walk into bars and see people order a grandma. You see them all look around like, what the hell is going on here? Unquote. I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm gonna order a grandma.
I feel the same. I love it. And what I will just say, if I ever, which I don't know why I'm trying to sound so cool, the next time I go get a shot at a bar,
When
the
will
only
we ever do this?
literally never. And in fact, I never did it before kids either. But if I were ever, I'm going to ask for one. And if they look at me weird, I'm going to be like, everyone in Newport does it. You don't know about Newport?
Come on.
Everyone in Newport does it. Yeah. So if I have to take a shot of something, I'm not mad at this. I'm only thing I'm mad at is that you cannot do it with me.
I
There will be a
know.
time when you can.
Yeah, and I will say that I tried to have Rachel convince her husband to take the shot with her, but he wouldn't. So
He wouldn't. He is insistent upon being behind the scenes. The
that's
idea of,
okay.
he said, hearing his voice on the podcast that he edits, he said literally the idea made him cringe. So
It is a little cringy, I will say, as the former editor. It was not the most fun.
well, then I'm gonna do this by myself.
I'm so excited for you.
Okay, cheers.
That's a decent sized shot too.
Do you know what? Okay, so
You're
this
not messing around.
there will be a picture of this on our Instagram. This is shot glasses that I have in my house.
Hmm.
And normally when I just pour, if I'm going to take a shot or I'm offering a shot to someone, I pour the liquor in this glass, right? Just directly. And I
Yes.
never fill it up this high. I normally maybe go like half or 3/4 of the way. I actually measured this one out
Uh-huh.
to make
Yeah.
sure it's 1.5 ounces. This is 1.5 ounces. I've been pouring short shots all this time.
Oh my God.
Doesn't
you've
this look
been cheating
giant?
us all.
No, I've been skimming you all for so long. It's giant though, right?
It does. And maybe
Yeah.
the glass must be really thick or something.
I don't feel like it's that thick. I feel like
All right, I
there's a
don't
lot
know.
of liquid. Okay, here I go.
Yes. Yes. Chuck. Chuck. Didn't even flinch with that, Grandma.
Actually, it's great. My throat is burning.
Yeah,
But this
I
is a
would
very
assume.
lovely thing to shoot.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till you can do it with me because
I
it was
know.
easy going down and there's like a lovely taste in my mouth now, which is honestly never, ever the case.
Yeah, even for good cocktails, they generally don't have good aftertaste.
Yeah. No, I'm even licking my lips and it's delicious. Newport
it.
knows what they're doing. So I guess if I'm going to give a rating to a shot,
Oh,
I'm going
yeah.
to give it a 9
Okay, so is this a 9 for all
shots.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
If I'm taking a shot, this was a 9.
Okay, great.
Okay. It was 1919. I'm setting the scene here.
Okay.
It was 1919. A man named Irvin Arnold, a machinist mate in the U.S. Navy, was about to raise hell. For anyone unfamiliar with Navy rankings, that's exactly what a machinist mate is. It's a ranking in the Navy forces and a position that is specifically responsible for mechanics and making sure that everything in the engine room on a Navy ship is working properly. Arnold had recently been stationed at the Newport Naval Training Station in Newport, Rhode Island, when he was sent to the hospital there to assist with his rather severe rheumatism,
What's rheumatism?
like rheumatoid
That's
arthritis.
rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah, okay.
I
don't
think
know.
rheumatism is inflation in your joints.
Okay.
While here in the hospital, he got chatting with a number of other sailors that were also doing hospital stays, most specifically a sailor named Thomas Brunel, who shared about some of the things that he and his other Navy colleagues did, which included having sex with other men that were in the Navy and also civilians. For Arnold, who was nearly 40, hearing stories about parties and drugs and even cross-dressing from Brunel likely was not all that uncommon. I'm not leaning into stereotypes when I say this. These are stats that I pulled directly from government statistics. When I say that the propensity for substance abuse, particularly alcohol abuse, is not uncommon in the military. In fact, Sadly, it is reported that 20% of all service members drink what is considered to be heavily. Veterans are more likely than non-veterans to be involved with heavy drinking, with alcohol being the primary substance abused by roughly 65% of veterans that enter treatment facilities. This number is twice the rate of that for civilians. All of these stats are seen more often among male veterans than female veterans. So certainly this atmosphere of alcohol abuse and partying that Brunel was telling Arnold about was not outside of the ordinary. Cross-dressing also was not that uncommon during this particular time frame. Women were not allowed to join the military until almost 1950. So in an environment that was nearly entirely men, it was common practice for sailors to dress as women in theatrical performances that were performed for their fellow sailors.
That reminds me of like, was it White Christmas or something?
Yes.
Where I feel like
I was thinking of White
they
Christmas too.
Yeah, yeah.
But as Boston Art Review would put it in an October 2024 article about this very topic, they said, quote, "This drag was not the drag of empowerment advocating for the gender fluidity that we know today. Though the early 20th century drag offered some productive confusion, it likely also affirmed sexism and contributed to homophobia," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was surprising to Arnold about Brunel's stories was the fact that Brunel, along with several other men, were meeting up with other men to have sex. Brunel shared with Arnold that Navy men regularly met with other sailors and civilians at the Army and Navy YMCA and a Newport art club for sex. And for Arnold, this was absolutely unacceptable. Determined to rid the Navy of what he considered to be immoral depravity, he began jotting down notes as Brunel talked. And then, I know, I love to imagine that, right? He's like, no, could you say that part again? What, how many times did you say you went down on him? What, wait, one more time. What was that?
And Brunel's just
just
gabbing.
Course, yeah. Gabbing. So he's awkwardly in my vision taking all these notes so that he could later write up a report about the, quote, ladies of Newport, as this group of men refer to themselves. After completing his report, Arnold gave it to his superiors, who then ordered that an investigation be conducted to look into the matter. Franklin Roosevelt, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy at the time, agreed that there should be an investigation into the allegations, ordering the Department of Justice to conduct an undercover investigation to get to the bottom of it. I think Graham, who's the creator of the World Queer Story WordPress page, said it best. He wrote about this on his website when he said that Roosevelt's motive in ordering this investigation was likely because his sights were already set on the White House. And at a time when the country was obsessed with purifying itself of immoralities, remember that 1919, it's less than a year before Prohibition was enacted. It would have been a popular idea to rid the Navy of homosexuality.
As if that's even possible.
It's not. It's absolutely not possible. But the country was really at this time going through a wave of concern for morality and tradition because, there's prohibition. We've talked about prohibition before. The amount of alcohol that this country was consuming,
it is shocking.
It is shocking. It actually is shocking. So they were like, we need to, rid this country of that immorality. There's also women at this time just on the cusp of gaining the right to vote. People are really concerned about women having political rights. And there's also this kind of loss of stability and ideology in the wake of the First World War. They have just come out of the First World War, and people are feeling really disheartened and confused about this country's intervention in overseas conflicts. DOJ Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer would put none other than Irvin Arnold in charge of this undercover investigation. Before joining the military, Arnold had worked as a detective for close to a decade. So sure, Arnold may have some credentials, but perhaps he was a bit too close to the subject.
Yeah, that feels really odd.
Either way, with Arnold in charge, he began recruiting men to work undercover to essentially elicit gay men to have sex with them. He recruited 14 men in March of 1919, ranging from 16 years old to 32 years old, though the vast majority of the recruits were between the ages of 16 and 19. And this is because Arnold possessed this disgusting stereotype that gay men are only interested in young men. Arnold was, yes, because I mean, this is me. I'm saying this as the stereotype goes that all gay men are predatory. And so they're only interested in young men. Arnold was also very specific about the men that he recruited, emphasizing how important it was for the men to be very good looking. Arnold instructed these recruits to hang out at the YMCA, the art club, and other popular spots in the gay community to quite literally lure and seduce men into having sex with them.
Could be considered entrapment, but that's fine.
We will be discussing entrapment at some point. While this team of undercover agents had a number of objectives, which included making notes about the drug scene and the identities of female sex workers, it was clear that the primary objective was to seduce, date, and subsequently identify gay men, both those in the Navy and otherwise. While the terms of these engagements were never spelled out with specifics, we do know from daily reports that these recruits submitted to Arnold that at least twice recruits stated that they had had anal sex to the point of orgasm. Which is like, if it's just, I mean, this is such a wild topic. It's like their contracts weren't specific about like how far you need to go, what you need to do. And yet here we have men orgasm mean.
And all in the name of stopping men from making other men orgasm.
But of course, that makes perfect sense. We also know of another recruit that engaged in sexual activity with a man on at least 2 occasions, but never captured the man's name, which is like the point of this whole operation, right? But like that's the point. You're like, he was, I don't know, he had maybe brown hair, maybe black hair. He was tall,
really handsome,
really handsome. And made me climax twice. That's what I've got for you. The way John Lowery wrote in a now archived New York Times article was so perfect that I have to quote it, even though it's a bit of a long quote. He said, quote, "The unnerving aspect of the Newport undercover operation isn't the risks that were taken by those that the undercover agents engaged with, who had no reason to assume that their dates weren't what they pretended to be, but the amount of consummated sex that seems to have taken place between these self-identified homosexual men and the partners who would have emphatically rejected such a label for themselves. Yet from the outset, it was clear, or strongly implied, that the operatives, as they were called, weren't being relieved of their other duties merely to document immoral propositions and lewd gestures. They were being sent by the Navy's own Comstock to record the nitty-gritty, complete to climax, and that they did," unquote. It's almost funny. It's not, but it's almost funny.
I'm laughing. It's kind of funny. I mean, it's
kind of funny.
Yeah.
Also, it's entrapment and
operating off of horrible stereotypes, and all the list goes on.
Hilarious that these men that reject the label of homosexuality are also the ones that are climaxing and not catching the names of the people they're supposed to identify.
Right. And they're not just rejecting, homosexuality. They're actively seeking to kill, like to stop it.
Yes. Yeah. It's more than just rejecting it. It's trying to stop it at its root
by engaging in it. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. You're right about that. For Arnold specifically, a man who was so homophobic that he was intent on ridding the entire Navy of a singular gay man, he sure did have an extreme interest, perhaps obsession, with it. I mean, imagine this guy not only directed men working under his supervision to engage in these sexual experiences, but he also told them to document every single detail about every single encounter, and then would read and study these notes at length afterward. I don't like the idea of being speculative, so I won't speculate. Really, what I'm trying to do here is just acknowledge the irony.
Yeah.
A handful of weeks after the investigation first began was when the first arrests would take place. By the end of April 1919, 15 sailors had been arrested. These sailors included Brunel, who, like many of his colleagues, started offering up the names of other gay men in their ranks if it meant that they may be given a lighter sentence. Some of these names included men that the undercover agents had never even met. The men would be held without trial for months before, in the fall of that year, a 3-week military trial would result in the majority of the convicted sent to a naval prison in Maine, with others being dishonorably discharged from service and then 2 others found innocent. So that should be the end of this awful story, right? Wrong. Because homophobe Arnold was in charge of this operation, he would refuse to end the mission with arresting only men in uniform. He wanted to go after civilians as well, and this was something that was approved by Franklin Roosevelt. I'm sure that many people do not need this reminder, but same-sex sexual activities were not federally legal across the United States until 2003, just a little over 20 years ago. And so technically, civilians engaging in same-sex relations were breaking the law, and Arnold would stop at nothing to put them behind bars for it. Of course, Arnold and the DOJ ensured that their people who were also engaging in technically illegal sex would face no consequences for it, nor would they face consequences for lying, persuading, cheating, eliciting sex, entrapment, and more. This all would come to a head, though, when Arnold's people arrested a clergyman named Reverend Samuel Neil Kent. While Arnold's team was insistent that Kent was gay and that they had engaged in sexual activities with him, Kent denied the allegations completely. And in early 1920, a jury would side with him and agree that he was innocent of the charges. What this trial would do would cast a harsh eye not on the gay community in Newport, but rather on Arnold, on the Navy, and the Department of Justice as a whole. It was this trial that would expose for the country the awful methods that this group of operatives had taken, and it would do so in a rather embarrassing and hilarious and enjoyable way for us. One witness, a man that was part of Arnold's team, was forced to acknowledge on the stand during this trial that he had allowed Kent to, quote, play with my penis and to allow it until it had an emission, unquote. Rather embarrassing for a supposedly straight man who was just doing his duty under the supervision of the law to admit. Further, the judge, which I love this, I think the judge was being petty, and I love a petty queen. The judge would argue that either the men involved in this operation were, 1, willing participants, and or 2, had been ordered to do something for which there should be no legitimate nor lawful reason to conduct. Yeah, I would agree with those sentiments. This whole ordeal would be drawn out in the public eye and in the media with specific focus on Roosevelt, who would now deny that he had direct oversight into the operation. Conveniently, Roosevelt would resign from his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy in July of 1920 in order to accept the nomination by the Democratic Party for vice president, though, as we know, he and his running mate would lose this election to 29th President Warren G. Harding.
Yes, we know that.
We do. I actually initially took your comment as like, yes, we do know that, because we've talked about Warren G. Harding.
Yes, we have.
Right? Yeah, because we've talked about like the Teapot Dome scandal, but that was a very long time ago. But anyway, I initially took you're like, yes, of course we know that. And then I realized that was veiled. Everyone knows about the 29th president of the United States, of course.
Obviously.
This debacle was raised to the level of a Senate investigation, with a subcommittee personally traveling to the naval prison to interview the convicted sailors so that they could compile a report of their findings. Here at the prison, the men told of how they had been coerced into performing sexual acts, how they had been coerced or coached into making guilty statements at trial, how they had been denied counsel, and so on.
Ooh, that's not good.
None of it's good. The findings of the committee's investigation were so damning and so graphic that the New York Times would write that they were, quote, unprintable, unquote.
Wow.
We do have a quote, however, from the report, which stated that in the course of the Newport Sex Scandal, the government had, quote, violated the code of the American citizen and ignored the rights of every American boy who enlisted in the Navy to fight for his country, unquote. And I think this is an important point to make. This here, it's 1920 now. World War I only just recently ended. People returned from the war disheartened. More than 100,000 men would lose their lives during the course of the war, a war that President Woodrow Wilson had declared during his presidential campaign that he would keep America out of. So the military wasn't necessarily popular following the war. And so the idea that the military was now a scary place, a place where mothers might send their sons to become involved in illicit and illegal sexual affairs, was a really powerful message. Even today, mothers, not that they send their kids off to the military, but their hope is when their kids join the military that they'll maybe straighten them out or give them opportunities. You certainly don't send your kids to the military, or your kids choose on their own to go to the military. You certainly don't hope for them that they're going to get involved in illicit and at this time illegal activities.
Yeah, I mean that's not even something you would concede.
Yeah. At the end of this investigation, no one other than the very religious cared about Newport's gay scene. Rather, it was the Navy that they were worried about and the ways in which it would corrupt young American men. As for the ladies of Newport, not much is known about them, though I did see in my research that most, if not all, were released from prison in the early 1920s. Even less is known about the young men that had been recruited by Arnold to participate in this heinous operation, although I would so love to know like what they went on to do.
Probably, never mind.
I know. Divorce their wives.
Yeah.
And for Roosevelt, we know he would later go on to become America's longest serving president. The effects of this little known scandal in history are far reaching. Hate perpetrated by the government against members of the LGBTQIA plus community continued and continues to this day. You'll recall that Stonewall was in 1969, a full 50 years after the start of the Newport investigation. LGBTQIA plus issues continue to be present in the military, with Congress only repealing the Don't Ask, Don't Tell law. The directive that it was established during the Clinton administration, which told military applicants to not disclose their sexual orientation. This law would only be repealed in 2011. I do like to see more of the playful and creative legacies to come from the Newport sex scandal, though. Forgive me for pronouncing this man's last name incorrectly. I'm going to do my best. Jason Tranchida?
Yeah, maybe.
And Matthew Lawrence, they collectively created a musical documentary called Scandalous Conduct, a Fairy Extravaganza, and it's all about the 1919 Newport sex scandal. It premiered in Newport late last year with plans to tour in 2025 and 2026.
Put it on the calendar.
Oh, it's on the calendar. Please.
Leaving the babies at home.
The babies are staying home for this one because Leah is going to take a real shot the night we go see it.
Heck yes. I'm loving this.
You can learn more about this musical documentary and if they're touring, hopefully in a city near you, at scandalousconduct.com. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History.
All sources used to put together the episode can be found on our website, which is hashtaghistory-pod.com.
A special thank you, as always, to my husband, Alex, for editing the podcast. You are genuinely, truly the best, especially because I can see that he ordered pizza that I'm going to go eat soon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, share about us with your family and friends, and then give us a rate and review.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram at #history_podcast.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. This is a place where you can support the podcast, and in exchange for your support, you will receive an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers.
Sure do.
Sure do. Thanks, everyone. Bye.